I'm Shahar Azani, and in the news, investments in Israel in this age of coronavirus. Recently, the European Investment Bank, EIB, and the Israel Innovation Authority signed a cooperation agreement to jointly pursue investment opportunities and address unmet needs in health and other industries. The State of Israel is well known for its vibrant entrepreneurial culture, technological infrastructure, and highly skilled workforce, as innovation is one of Israel's most valuable natural resources. Israel is today home to over 350 R&D centers of multinational corporations, many of which belong to the Fortune 500 companies. The Israel Innovation Authority is an independent, publicly funded agency meant to provide practical tools and funding platforms to address the needs of the local and international innovation ecosystem. It includes early-stage entrepreneurs, mature companies developing new products, academic groups, global corporations interested in collaborating with Israeli technology, Israeli companies seeking new markets abroad, and traditional factories and plants seeking to incorporate innovative and advanced manufacturing into their business. With me to discuss this issue and more is Dr. Ami Appelbaum, Chairman of the Board of the Israel Innovation Authority and the Chief Scientist for the Ministry of Economy and Industry. Ami has more than 36 years' experience in research, development, and senior level management in the field of semiconductor. Prior to his current position as Chief Scientist, Dr. Appelbaum served for 22 years at numerous executive positions at KLA Tencor, a $15.6 billion market cap and world leader in the business of capital equipment for the semiconductor industry based in the Silicon Valley. His most recent position was Corporate Senior Vice President and President of KLA Tencor in Israel. Ami holds a doctorate and master degrees from the Technion, Israel's renowned Institute of Technology in Haifa, and an engineering degree from Ben Gurion University in Beersheba in the Negev, all in the field of materials engineering. He is the author and co-author of more than 50 scientific and technical publications. He holds 7 patents in the field of semiconductor equipment and processing. Dr. Appelbaum, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and welcome to JBS.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
So, Ami, let's start with your personal background. You're no stranger to the United States. You actually lived here in the past. Maybe share with our viewers a little bit about that experience and your familiarity with the US.
Yes, I spent 2 tours of duties in the US. Straight after my graduating my PhD in the Technion, I got a position at AT&T Bell Labs in New Jersey, and I spent there 4 years. And then I was recruited by Rockwell International in Dallas, Texas. And then the company moved me to Newbury Park, California. So not only I spent 8 years in the US at that period of time, I also moved from the East Coast to the South to the West Coast. So I cover probably more mileage than many of other people in the US.
Excellent. So let me ask you this. You come from, like we heard, from a very impressive background in the private sector. How long have you been with the Israel Innovation Authority, and what made you take this task upon you?
That's a very good question. I'm in the public service only for 2.5 years. And I decided to move to the public sector because I think as an Israeli who grew up here in Israel and explore the world, I would say, because not only I worked in the US, part of my job was making businesses with Japanese and Chinese and Europeans globally. KLA is a global company. So
and you are the United Nations.
And after all those years, I knew inside myself that I can bring a lot of value to many, many companies in Israel with all the knowledge that I accumulated, and especially my management experience and training in the big corporate America. And to do that, you have to be part of the public sector. And as in Israel, you all know that every adults go to reserve duty 30 or 15 or 30 days every week, every year. I look at this also as a reserve duty, that I'm going to give back to the country who gave me so much, and I want to give back and take Israel, high-tech or startup nation, into a higher level and go into new height for the Israel economy, for Israel research and development, and the Israel industry.
Really taking your experience in the way only Israel can do, combining our zeal for business with Zionism and tying it all together, which leads me to asking you about the work that you do. Maybe you can share with our viewers, educate us a little bit about your work with Israel's Innovation Authority, both domestically in Israel and abroad. What is it that you do?
So, Israel Innovation Authority is the government arm to stimulate research and development and lead research and development for Israeli industry. The startup nation that you all familiar with, Israel Innovation and the chief scientist has a cornerstone in that status, that being appreciated by globally by all world leaders, and for all technical and innovation that's coming up from Israel. And what we do is we investing public money in the private sector. You know that usually it's the other way around. The public sector take money from the private sector in terms of taxes. Here, the government of Israel 40 years ago realized that in order to stimulate research and development and advanced technology, the government have to invest in the wise way. Now, what does it mean, wise way? It means that the government does not define what to invest in, but rather we let entrepreneurs that no one yet willing to give them money because they just have a dream, they just have a vision, and VC still cannot invest in them. We go and evaluate and giving them money. If the product and our money that we give them is a conditional loan. If you succeed, you pay us back in a very low pace when you start generating revenue. If your idea failed, then the money become a grant and you don't have to give it back. And we are providing this fund from all spectrum or the entire product life cycle. We are giving this money from technology transfer, from academia to industry. We're giving this money for entrepreneur. We're giving this money to small, medium-sized company. We give this money to incubators, as long as we look for three elements. One, that it will be a breakthrough technology, not me too. If it's done already and successful somewhere else in the world, not only Israel, we don't fund it. Second, it's got to be with a global strategy. And third, it's got to be with a good team. We look on the good management, good team, and if the product is comply with all three criteria, they can get our fund. And even we give money to large companies, very large company I came from, KLA Tencor, at the time $16 billion, now $24 billion market cap. If that company, which have branch in Israel, incorporate in Israel, fully owned by the mother company in California. We went to the chief scientist and we told him, before I joined the chief scientist, and we told him we have a breakthrough technology that the CEO of the company say, too dangerous. I have to provide my quarterly earning call, too dangerous. I don't want to invest. It's so risky, but it is such a game changer, absolutely game changer. Chief scientist gave us money because it's a game changer, because we are at a position that it's a long-term research breakthrough, And that's a way, for example, Mobileye, that you all heard about and was sold
Right.
for $15.2 billion. Mobileye got money from chief scientists many, many years ago. And many other large companies that sold in Israel for billions of dollars, at the inception, at the entrepreneurship level, they got money from the chief scientist. And that's what we do. Now,
That's what we do. I mean, that's incredible because that's Israel, right? Realizing dreams and being able to accompany them even when others may not have faith in them.
Still not have faith in them because the VC have a very, very strict rules and agenda how they invest money. We want to enable entrepreneurs to go to the stage where venture capital will be ready to invest in them. Once VC invest, now we can back off. We don't have to continue unless they come for the next product, which again, another revolutionized product. We go and we pay for it. We look where we see market failure, and that may lead us into the situation we're now. Because we are looking into where there are market failure, where the private sector still or still not ready to invest or have no incentive to invest. We see big opportunity, then we see, aha, here is a market failure. If we will invest, I'll give you an example. Life science in Israel, best academia, Weizmann Institute, Technion, Tel Aviv University, many graduates in biology, many PhD in biology, in pharmaceutical, in microbiology, medical equipment, but not much industry. They all moving overseas and getting top jobs. Go to Boston and see Harvard Medical School and Harvard Hospital. You see how many Israeli, because the industry, we have a good academia, but not enough space or not enough employment, not enough company that can accommodate all those graduates. So we export them. Why to export them? We want to keep them here. So we're investing in that area today very aggressively.
So let me ask you, you're talking about market failures and current situations in biology. Tell us a little bit about the situation of the Israeli high-tech sector as it entered COVID-19, this pandemic. What was the situation before?
Who remembers? It looked like it was centuries ago. Only 2 months ago. And Israel, fortunately, got into that COVID-19 epidemic disaster in a very strong shape. Last year, there were more than $9 billion, $9.3 billion invested in Israeli high-tech. There were many exits, meaning that the high-tech industry is loaded with money that hopefully can continue to pursue them further despite the crisis. But it is a dangerous situation, and I will elaborate in a minute. At the same time, what we saw last year is sharp increase in the growth companies that are no longer just research and development, but rather high-tech companies that have revenue. And we have more than 450 companies that are generating revenue anywhere between 5 to over $200 million, more than 450 of those companies, meaning that there is a largest segment, largest ever in Israel history, of number of high-tech companies who are growing now and generating revenue. And we have more than 31, if I'm not mistaken, unicorns today in Israel.
And let me ask you, I mean, I'm sure there has been no stagnation in the sense that the Israeli high-tech sector has been part of the national effort to combat COVID-19, the crisis. Can you tell us a little bit about the role that the high-tech sector played in that?
Yes. The high-tech sector and the Israel Innovation Authority is leading the high-tech sector activities and fund. So very soon, it's clear that many of the action that you have to take has to do with technology on all fronts. And if it is digitization, if it is vaccine, if it is and monitoring the spread and predicting the spread of the disease. So we went straight after the epidemic just started here in Israel, and we went up with a call for a bid for the Israeli companies who can fight the coronavirus. When I say to fight, it means whether if you have any product that you are manufacturing and now you can divert it into fighting the disease. For example, companies who are manufacturing masks, companies who are manufacturing unwoven fabric that you can add, and companies who now have a protecting gears that you can add to that some antibacterial nanoparticles, then you have the most protected mask because there is a antibacterial cover, nanoparticles, who kill the virus. And we went out and promoted call for application, and we said we will give you 50% of the development of that product if you can bring it to the market in 12 months.
And you were able to make that shift quickly in issuing that intent to the companies?
Not only we were able to do the shift quickly, the industry made it on, like, turn on the dime. So that was industry as one. Second, it's a product that already developed, and they're in the phase to start the pilot production and testing those products in real life. We said we'll give you also money on a very, very quick turnaround. Like in 3 weeks, we'll evaluate you, apply for us, we'll evaluate with...
And the bureaucracy, Ami, the bureaucracy actually worked? Were you able to execute such funding in a matter of weeks?
If you bring to the public sector people from the private sector, they know how to do it, because I went in the semiconductor through endless of ups and downs and hiring and firing and expand and shrink. I know how to do that. That's what I did for 22 years. And that's what we did. We turned on the dime and we drove fund and we drove the companies, and even we went to ideation. Professor in the university who have idea primarily in vaccine or in repurposing drugs or diagnostics, we gave them also money. They will come to the market in 12 to 24 years. So we thought that we'll get maybe 100 applications. Listen to that. We got more than 900 applications.
Wow.
And we put only 50 million, it's a 50 million shekel, it's like 25 million or 20 million, about $20 million, that's more 60. $20 million for that. So that clearly was not enough, but it was very fast. Now we're going to the second phase. So that's already done. Companies already providing a product in diagnostic, in public monitoring, in disease tracking, in remote healthcare. Now it's very clear that the technology will drive the way out of this epidemic. For example, it's very clear that we will consume different technology than what we did prior, like we, both of us now consume the Zoom technology, which was not that popular before. We already know that you can accomplish so much remotely. We have many remote sensors for patients in all spectrum of diseases, by patches, by taking the data to the cloud and going down to fully secure, protecting the privacy of people to a central point. The in-center command in the hospital, they can see sensors of more than 500 patients on a critical, thanks God we don't have it, but that's a capability. And the system will alert which patient is in needed support and can prioritize them. So the doctor get a lot of help. I give you more than that. We even have a machine that can read the MRI, and now one of the ways to see COVID-19 is in the CT, and the system will tell you what the eyes of the doctor cannot see, whether or not that patient has COVID-19.
Ami,
So
the future is here. It's amazing to hear you describe all of this.
That's already running in Israel, and I argue that every disasters create opportunity. Every downturn, every low situation that you are in create opportunity that if you know how to drag it, then you can take advantage and you can get out of that stronger than what you got into it. And that's exactly our purpose.
And the fact is, Ami, and the fact is that we're hearing incredible progress, agility within even the bureaucracy, which is truly inspiring and very impressive. I want to ask you what's in every JBS viewer's mind at this point is, when is it going to be here? Tell us a little bit from your experience about the collaboration between the Israel Innovation Authority and with the United States in general, maybe specifically about coronavirus, because we would all love to see the same kind of progress taking place all over.
We have many years of collaboration with the US. We have a multiple bilateral agreement with different states in Israel, Florida, Michigan, Colorado, Georgia. We have multinational bilateral agreement. We have multinational collaboration with Mayo Clinic. So with Thomas Jefferson University and Hospital, with Hartford Healthcare. So every product that we develop here, the companies, again, the government stay out. We enable the institution, being the Jefferson Medical Center, with the Israeli technology, and the Israeli technology companies can go and piloting their product in the hospitals in the US. So multinational companies agreement like that. We also have for many years the Baird Foundation that I have the honor to be one of the co-chairmen, and Baird Foundation is about $100 million of endowment that distributed about $10 million every year for mutual research and development between Israeli company and US companies. And again, we put together the board of directors and the general manager a plan for fighting the COVID-19 on the broader spectrum of that. Because the COVID-19 is not only to provide vaccination, it's also how to better isolate people, how to better sense from remote, everything that I said before. So we have a lot of collaboration. I would like, there is never enough. I would like to have a much more activities, and all of that is focusing on state-of-the-art technology, on taking the best of the best and make the two partners here, Israel and the US, taking the lead worldwide in technology and in innovation.
And that undoubtedly makes us all very proud. So maybe to talk about collaboration, I'd like to end with a very important question about the American Jewish establishment. In various Jewish communities, there is a perception that investing in Israel is an issue of charity. It's limited to philanthropy, and much of it is emotional rather than business-oriented. What I'm hearing from you today is that regardless of our passion for Israel and our sense of Zionism, Israel truly presents great opportunities for investment that actually make sense financially.
Israel today is in very different situation from what Israel was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. I'm not saying 10 years ago. I remember as a kid, we used to get packages of clothes from my aunt in New York. And it was, wow, amazing clothes that we could not even dream having in Israel. And then the philanthropy went more into money and education and school, which was all welcome. And you, the Jewish community in the United States, have a strong part, very strong part of where Israel today. But today, you should be proud with us. But not only proud, you should look into the opportunity to come and invest in Israel, because if I say that you have more than 450 growth company, meaning that they are not a risky company anymore. They are a company with generating fortune. And that's the best opportunity to come and to invest in those companies, because we are still short in fund for taking more company to become $1 billion, a unicorn company. And you have the opportunity. Many of your institutional fund, of your pension fund, especially in California and others, know that the secret, and they're already investing. I want to tell you the same secret. You can come and invest in Israeli company. And if you don't know how to invest in Israel, there are many different funds that you can join the fund who are familiar in Israel. You don't have to be Israeli to invest in. I know we are Israeli, very hard to deal with. And that's not going to change. That's a good and bad. It's a blessing and curse. And I know, I lived in the Jewish community in the US, and I know how complicated it was to deal with me. So you don't have to do that. All you have to do is to find the right venture capital, and there are many like our crowds and others who are taking private people money to invest, and you have all the say in the crowd investment, how to invest. And I think today, where Israel is at, it's a time that Israel will pay back to you who invested so heavily and so much through the history, 70 years of history of Israel. You invested in us. It's a payback time that we now you can leverage the wealth that being generated in Israel for your own benefits, and everyone will be happy. Win-win situation. And Israel today, with so many technology that I just described about combating the epidemics, the COVID-19 epidemic, but not saying anything about the advanced agriculture in Israel, advanced clean water. 93% of Israeli wastewater is recycled, is recreated, 93%. Think about it, if we can do it in every contaminated water in Arizona or in other state where the drilling contaminated all the water. So with your help, with the Jewish community and Israel as a spearhead to make the world a better place to live for all humankind.
That's an amazing, amazing note to end on, Ami. Thank you so much. This has been truly educational and informative, and I hope the message filtered through. Thank you so much for joining us on JBS. It's always encouraging to witness Israel's global impact and appeal. And of course, we stand by you as you continue to push for Israel's prosperity and success. Keep up the great work, and may much funding flow in your direction from all corners of the US and the world. And to all of our viewers, I say, stay safe and stay healthy. I would like to thank our director, Sloan Copeland, JBS's managing director, Dara Golub, technical manager, Michael Paley, transmission manager, John McDevitt, and to the producer of In the News, Carol Lilienthal. For JBS, I'm Shahar Azani. Until next time, see you soon and להתראות.